What's up, Agency Go fam? So I put together a pretty comprehensive tutorial on Zapier and how I use it for my agency, my multi-million-dollar agency. And I wanted to make this because Zapier is such an important tool for my agency. I mean, it is probably one of the most important things that we use as an agency to run our company. And so I hope that you use this. I hope that it helps you grow your agency more effectively. And if you ever need anything, my name is Lucas James. I'm the creator of AgencyGo.io. We help agencies scale to over $185,000 per month in revenue, like I've done for myself. All right, so I absolutely love Zapier. It is one of the best apps I think that has ever been created or ever will be created. And there's a lot of ways you can use this for your agency. So first and foremost, let's talk about what Zapier is. Zapier is essentially a tool that allows you to create what are called Zaps. And every time you create a Zap, it essentially integrates two different apps together. So there's a number of different ways you can do this. First of all, you can just do it from well-known apps that already have set up integrations within Zapier. So let's say I wanted to connect, Calendly. Every time a Calendly meeting is booked and I go invite created or canceled, I can then connect it to my Calendly account. I can plug in the API key, and then once that's done, it'll then create a flow. So I'll show you one that's already set up on my end so you guys get a sense of what it looks like. Let's say, in here, there's a new order placed within PayFunnels for a software that I use for tracking all my subscription payments that come from Stripe. Whenever there's a recurring payment made, I then send an outbound email, which then creates or updates contacts and active campaign. And then I filter that email to make sure that it was, correct and it's worth passing through. I then send a direct message in Slack, send an outbound email, send a filter to text to basically make sure it's formatted correctly. And then I trigger an API workflow in Bubble. And this workflow in Bubble allows me to create a new account for that new user who placed an order inside PayFunnels. And so let's go step by step into how I built this one. So first of all, this trigger, which is a recurring payment in PayFunnels, you choose the app or event. And so this first recurring payment, you select the app you want it from here. And then this is on currently, so you have to turn it off if you're making any adjustments. I'm not making any adjustments at the moment, so I'm not going to turn it off. But then you choose the account, you test the trigger, and then here's the thing. This is very fundamental coding best practices. And really, this Zapier is essentially a no-code solution that allows you to integrate two different apps together. But a lot of developers use it for their own applications. But the thing is that from here, I could see all the JSON data, which is this data. This is just formatted JSON data, which allows me to then pass these what are called key value pairs. So you have customer email, which is the key, and the value, Connor@emodmarketing.com, passes it on to the next steps in the sequence. And so to be clear, this essentially is what's called post requests. I'm only going to briefly dive into this because I know it's a little bit of a difficult subject to kind of get into, but really post request, think of it like the email routing of the internet. It's every time you do a request from one client server to another server, you're basically getting, if you do a GET request, you're getting information. And then that's pulling it from a server. And if you're doing a post request, you're sending a payload from one computer to another or one server to another. And essentially what this does is it's sending a post request from PayFunnels to this outbound email sender that's within Zapier. And these two apps are essentially passing data back and forth, right? And so this is the first step. And then now that I've sent a post request to this next step, I set this one up as well. So Zapier itself has different apps that can be used within the toolkit, like send outbound email. You can also do numerous other actions inside here as well. You set up the action so that way everything goes through. You test the action. And then once you test the action, it'll then send an email to your email. So this particular step will send an email to your email. And now you can make more steps as well, like create or update contact and active campaign, which is a step you can do, which I honestly use a lot. I use active campaign quite often because you can create different contacts to different lists. Like for instance, I have paying members, email address, first name, last name, full name, phone number, tags, etc. You can create a bunch of different categories within here for Zapier. And then also, once you do the same exact thing, you test the action. Now, for more complex variables or solutions like this one, you can do what's called filtering. So there's a couple of utility functions within Zapier that once you pass the data through multiple apps, right, you can then do. So for instance, this is only continue if, right? So this one says only continue if the invoice title contains vault, because we have a program called the vault, and I only am attributing certain deals based on if it says the vault. So in this case, it says vault, so I'm attributing a deal that says vault. Now, when you hit continue, it'll then trigger a success message, which means it's able to go to the next step. Now, this next step here, which is send direct message, sends a message to my team with the details of this particular payment. So you can see here, Lucas James, Jordan Ross, Zach Veith, right? It sends all of us a notification that this person has made a payment within Slack. Now, the other type of formatting you can do is this one, which basically formats the text. So in this case, I set up an action. I have this customer name who has an action here as a value, which I can separate as a space. I can segment the index, so that way it returns something that actually is formatted correctly. And the same thing here. So this is good if, let's say you have somebody who enters a full name into a field, right? And you want to separate the names, so that way you can create first name, last name in something like another API for an app, let's say. Then what you can do is you can create a split like this, a separator, and you can get all different types of formatting in here. Zapier offers space, tab, new line, return. These are different types of options for splitting characters or finding whatever it is that you need to do within the actual data set that you're passing, or the values that you're passing. You can transform the text in a variety of different ways through their modified text feature. And then you pass it through again. And then this is Bubble, which I use for passing data to a new data set. So for instance, I can pass it through here, and I can see that there's first name, last name, email address, etc., all passed through here. So that's how I would set it up. Now, there are some additional ways that you can use Bubble. So for instance, the way I like to use it for my own Zaps, when I'm doing more complex Zaps, is what's called the Zapier post requests that you can do through webhooks. So webhooks are essentially, think of them as like endpoints is another word for it, but endpoints that allow you to capture data, get data, and post data. So not in that one, but let me get another one here. I'll actually just create one for you. If you were to create a endpoint or a webhook here, then what you're essentially doing is you're either catching a hook or you're retrieving a poll. And in either situation, what that means is if you're retrieving a poll, you're essentially doing you're pulling a URL. So let's say it's an API, or let's say it's a database or whatever. You're looking for new entries into that database. So when I click this, retrieve poll, and I click continue, what it's going to ask for is a URL, and it's going to say input this URL. And what happens is there's a lot of apps that post all their data or store all their data in a database, right? And you access it through a URL string, right? And again, you have a key value pair, which essentially gets you certain data from that URL. And this is another way to find specific types of data and filter specific types of data inside of a URL string. So an easy way to look at this is you see how if I were to say, let's say here at the top here, let's say it was question mark, app equals active campaign, right? You've probably seen stuff like this across different apps that you've been to. I mean, even Google, actually. Let's just go search something in Google. I'll just search for Kanye West car, right? Here we go. So you can see here, question equals Kanye West car. See, this is a key value pair. Path parameter is another way to define it. And then you have additional other ones that are more so known to Google that allows Google to understand what this query is and then pull up search results based on that query. And so you can actually create polls like this inside Zapier for pulling data from different apps, depending on what's needed for that application. Now, when it comes to specific use cases for your agency, not just how you set up these, but actually specific use cases for your agency, you can do what I do, which is I have typically every time a customer purchases, I send a Zap. Every time a customer fills out a form, I send a Zap. Every time somebody needs to go into an automation sequence, right? Like first podcast scheduled, interested meeting sequence scheduled, manual vault order placed, I send them down a sequence. Now, this is very This helps me streamline a lot of my operations, because what happens is this, if you think about it, we've done 1,500 Zaps this month, right? So that is a lot of time. Think about having to do 1,500 individual actions every single time something occurs. Think about how much, if you take, let's just assume that, I'll pull up a calculator here. Let's just assume that every single action takes on average 2 minutes a month. That's 3,060 minutes divided by 60. That's about 51 hours of time saving, right? And I'm only paying Zapier, I think, like $49 a month. So what's your time worth, right? And the thing is, a lot of these tasks that Zapier has here are tasks that otherwise you would probably have to do. Like, you probably could get an admin to do a lot of these, but some of them are sensitive tasks that require authorization, requiring logging into accounts. And that's why you give authorization through Zapier. So that way you don't have to have a VA go and actually do all these things, right? It just does it for you. So that's why I would use Zapier. I love this tool, and it just creates so many different things that you can do. It's a playground for unlimited type of functionality, and there's so many different apps. I mean, you can just type in any 2 apps. Like if I typed in, Active Campaign and Calendly, I mean, I'm pretty sure Zapier is going to be the first thing that comes up. Maybe not the first, third thing. Connect your Calendly to Active Campaign integration. And you just search that and you can connect literally everything. I don't know where I would be without Zapier. So definitely start using it. It's definitely one of the biggest improvements I've had to my agency so far.